Hello, I am Nicole, and in this video, I'll be showing you all the new admin configurations that will be coming out in our back office release. This video is broken up into segments by each tab under admin. So let's get started. In this segment, we are going to talk about the new Manage Client Billing, which improves some additional configurability and drop-down options that your sales rep will be able to see on the Client Billing tab within their profile. So to get there, you'll go to Admin, Master Data, and Manage Client Billing. And the new window will pop up. Right now it will be blank when you open it up once we release the back office, but then as you build your list you'll be able to see it here. So the Manage Client Billing tab is used to help configure the drop-down options for the invoice delivery method and invoice terms fields within the Client Billing tab. To add a new drop-down option, you'll click on Add New, and in the window you'll see two different fields. The first one is Select Category, which there are two options. You have Invoice Delivery Method, which is a field that is used to collect information on how the client would like to receive their invoice. And then you have Invoice Terms, which is the field to collect information on the number of days from when the invoice date was sent to within which the client needs to pay their invoice order to your agency. So you'll click on one option, and the next field you'll see is called Code or Value. This is a free-form field, so if you were to select Invoice Delivery Method, you may write something in there like email or mail, and however you want to send out the invoice to your client and how they would like to receive it. And the next option is Invoice Terms. So Invoice Terms is going to be a numerical value, typically in days, but you can put in any type of value you would like. So I may say that 90 days is how long that the client has before they have to pay the agency back from their invoice. And I'm going to click Save, and you can see that the new option is generated below at the bottom of the list. So when your sales rep goes into their client profile, they'll click on that billing tab, and in here they'll be able to see the invoice delivery method with the different options we have, such as email, mail, or reverse billing, which I just configured in the admin, or your invoice terms of how many days. So here you can scroll through and you can see there's 60, 30, and all the way down you can see that there's 90 days. So I can click on 90 days and to update the information in the client profile. In this segment, we are going to talk about the 4 new configurability fields that we have added to our Manage VMS tab. To get there, you'll hover over Admin, scroll down to Master Data, and about halfway down on our list, you'll find Manage VMS System. You'll click on that to open a window. Here you already will have information populated as you've already had information configured in the VMS system. When we do our back office release, it's just going to add those additional fields, and you can go back in anytime to add additional information. It won't affect anything currently working in production. So those new fields we have added are bill rate range, non-billable orientation hours, billable orientation hours, and billable orientation percentage of rate. So to go in and edit any information, you'll just double click on one of your VMS systems you already have configured, and the information will already populate in the fields that are the same. And then the fields that are not will remain blank, and you can go in to enter that information. So for bill rate range, we have a yes/no question. If you select yes, it gives a sales rep the ability to set a minimum and maximum bill rate when creating a job posting, which will be reflected on the deal sheet for the recruiter to see. The bill rate will automatically default to the minimum rate within the deal sheet, and this will help give the recruiters leeway when they're creating a deal to give you the best options for your gross margin profit. And it will also allow the recruiter to see the maximum minimum amount that was set, but they cannot exceed those limits. So they will get an error message and it will automatically default back to that minimum range that has been set at the client level by your sales rep. For non-billable orientation hours, this field is the amount of non-billable orientation hours that the VMS allow. So for this purpose, we're going to say it's 8. We'll scroll over to our next field, which is billable orientation hours. This field is the amount that the VMS will actually allow if you're able to bill them for any orientation hours. However, this can be left blank if this is not an option for that VMS system. For this purpose, we're going to say it's 8. And then the billable orientation percentage of rate goes back to this field. And in this field is the rate or percentage of billable orientation hours the VMS will allow. So we'll say they'll allow us to charge 50% of the actual rate when the recruiter is on the orientation. And we're just going to click Save, and we can see the information has updated for my VMS system. So this will track through 3 different areas within the system. The first area will be on the client profile page, where we have added this orientation field or chart. And here automatically, if you have those different VMS systems selected, it will pull in that information for that orientation billing, and it will automatically map over here. However, if you have to go in as a sales rep, they are able to click on the orientation and they're able to change any information that they need to. So always the client will trump the VMS system when it comes to that level if there's more than one different rate going on. The next area that will map over will be into the job details. So if they were to create a new job posting, at the very bottom we can see that there's a low and high rate, which we selected yes or no. So we can say maybe that the low rate is 75 and the regular bill rate will be 100. And they'll go through and complete filling out the rest of the information just as they would for any other job posting, which then will track over to our deal sheet for the recruiter. So right here we have our bill rate. It automatically defaulted to that low rate, but if I hover over it will say 75 to 100, so I know that range. So they're able to enter any amount within that range and it'll still be okay, and they're able to save the deal sheet and move on. However, if they were to somehow go over that bill rate, it will not let them save. They'll get an error message saying bill rate should be between 75 and 100, and it'll automatically default back to that lower minimum rate of 75 that was set and configured at the job level by the sales rep. And those are the different areas that are different configurations for the VMSs we'll track throughout the system. In this segment, we are going to be talking about Manage Burden Rates, which is a new configurability field that we have underneath admin configurations to work towards our deal sheet. So to get there, we have admin. You're going to scroll down to deal sheet, and at the very top we're going to find Manage Burden Rates, which you'll click on. And in here is where you configure any costs associated with doing business that are above and beyond the candidate compensation. So to start creating a new burden rate, you'll enter in the field any type of name that you would like to call your burden. And then we'll just say test 1. So you apply a type of earnings. So there's 3 different choices in this dropdown. We have taxable earnings, which are rates applied to wages. We have our non-taxable earnings, which are rates applied to lodging, meals, and incidental expenses. And then we also have total earnings, which is applied to a combination of both the wages, lodging, and meals and incidental expenses. So you'll select one of those choices. Here you have an option of either doing a dollar amount or a percentage. So a dollar is just a flat dollar amount taken out of the total, and then our percentage is calculated against the total amount. So we'll just say we'll do a flat dollar amount, and we'll scroll over to our next field, which is burden apply on. So either we have 3 choices: your deal, so this will only be applied on the original deal; extensions, this burden will only be applied on extensions; and at the bottom we have both, so this burden will be applied on all deals and extensions. So we'll select both. In our last field we have our burden rate, which is a field that you'll type in, and you want to make sure whatever figure you enter in here correlates to either if you selected the dollar amount or percentage. So since we selected the dollar amount, we'll say that it's $25, so it'll be just a flat $25 taken out of that total amount. And you'll click Save, and you're able to see that the burden has been added to our list. So when you go onto a deal sheet, these burdens will be factored into the candidate pay in addition to the gross margin profits as well. In this segment, we're going to talk about 2 additional options that we have had added to our Manage Deal Sheet Costs. So to get there, you're going to hover over Admin, scroll down to Deal Sheet, and about halfway down you'll find Manage Deal Sheet Costs, which you'll click on. This window will automatically populate any information that you already have configured for additional deal sheet costs. You'll just have one additional column added. So if you want to go through, you can go edit any of those additional costs you have. So you can double click on that item, and automatically the fields that have carried over from production to our new back office release will automatically populate the information you already have configured. And then you can scroll over to our new field, which is agency or nurse. So here we have agency, which is classified as any cost as being paid for by the agency and will come out of the gross margin profit. And then we have nurse, which is any cost that's going to be paid for by the nurse and will come out of their take-home pay. So we'll select agency, and we'll click Save, and then we can see that information was updated in that new column we have added. The additional feature that we also have is show agency nurse column on deal sheet, And this is just a simple yes or no question. So if you would like it to be shown, you'll click yes. So this applies to all deal sheets. It's not per agency or per cost. It's an all or nothing choice. So if you want this additional column to show for your recruiters, so that way they know where the cost is coming out from, you would select yes. If you're going to end up having all your costs just be set against the agency, you would probably want to select no, because there's no need to show the column if it's all the same information for all your additional costs. If you do have anything variances and you want your recruiters to see that, then I would select yes. So how that would look is here would be the column, and then you'd be able to go through and see that, yep, this was applied to a nurse, this is applied to an agency, so that way the recruiter knows where that amount is coming out from. Or if you have the same option for all your additional costs that it doesn't matter for the recruiter to see, you can select no, and then that column will not appear in those additional costs. In this segment, we are going to talk about a new option that we have added to our Manage Deal Sheet parameters. So to get there, you're going to hover over Admin, scroll down to Deal Sheet, and you're going to scroll down to Manage Deal Sheet parameters, and you're going to click on that. So any parameters that you already have configured will automatically stay here. We just have a new option of a column that will say Display Hourly Stipend Rate. So if you want to edit any of those, you'll just double click, and everything that's already been configured in your system will automatically populate, and then you'll just need to go through and select yes or no if you would like to display the hourly stipend rate. So when you select yes, a field will appear on the deal sheet next to stipend fields to show the recruiter the hourly amount the candidate is receiving for housing and meals and those incidentals. Or if you select no, that field will not appear on the deal sheet for the recruiter to see. So for this instance, we're just going to click yes, and I'm going to click save, and I can see that it updated in my column. And then for the recruiter on the deal sheet, this is the window that I'm talking about. So if you select yes, this window will appear and it will automatically calculate based on what you have configured for lodging and those meals and incidentals. And then it will give you the hourly stipend rate that the candidate will be receiving. In this segment, we're going to talk about the revamping we did for our managed rates and multipliers on our deal sheet. So to get there, you'll go to Admin, scroll down to Deal Sheet, and at the very bottom we have Manage Rates and Multipliers, which you'll click on to open your field. So this field will look completely different than what you are used to seeing in our current production. So here now we have our Managed Rates and Multipliers, which are configured for state-specific rates. So you can click on any plus sign, and anything that is configured for that state you'll be able to see listed below. And each state could have different configurations. So if you wanted to add something to a state, let's say that you're looking at that you're missing, you'd be able to click on this Add More plus sign, and you would be able to default select that state, and then select the information that's missing for a rate or multiplier that you would like to include for that state. However, if the state is not listed currently on this list, you would click on Add Multiplier and select that state that you would like to add. So for this purpose, we're just going to say Kansas. However, this is a multi-select, so if there's a rate that you're applying, such as overtime over 40, that would be applied to all 50 states, you would be able to multi-select all the states, and that would automatically list all the states here with that overtime 40 rate that you created. So for this purpose, we're just going to say Kansas. Next, we have our select rate code, which has multiple drop-downs. So we have our pay rate for overtime after 8 hours, 12, 40, 48, and then between 36 and 40 hours. And we also have an orientation pay, which is a default rate to pay the candidate during orientation. And we have our blended rate, which is more California specific, which is a combination of the regular and overtime rates together. So we're just going to select a basic overtime 40 after 40. So we have display bill rate on job details. If this field is selected, a field on the job details will populate for the sales rep to fill in with a rate. So if we're going to select yes. Then we have display pay rate on deal sheet. So this is for the candidate of what they would get paid. If you would like this field to show up, so an overtime over 40, so the recruiter could enter a rate for them, you would click on yes. Then our next field is rate type, and we have two options, either a dollar amount or multiplier, and this applies to our field next to us for the minimum. So automatically on the deal sheet, when the recruiter opens up the deal sheet, it will automatically default to the minimum amount that is set, either based on the multiplier or the dollar amount. So if you just want to do a flat dollar amount, saying that the minimum amount that they can get paid for overtime would be 30, you would select dollar amount. However, if you want it to be time and a half against whatever rate they're getting, you would enter in a multiplier, so we would say 1.5 to do time and a half. And then your maximum rate is always going to be a dollar amount. So this is a dollar amount that the recruiter cannot enter in above when quoting quoting their candidate for their job. So let's say that they cannot go over $50 as a quote, and then you'll click Save, and then you can scroll down to your list and see that it's been added for Kansas. And then again, if you had to add any more, you would just click on the green plus sign for that state of Kansas. So it will appear in 3 different areas, the multipliers and rates that you are configuring. The first area would be on the client management. It would be in their specialty tab. So open up a client and click on their specialty tab. And if you can see all these additional fields of the overtime after 12, 48, 40, so these are all the different bill rates that you would have, and you're able to configure those. So if they're already configured on the specialty tab, when a recruiter or the sales rep goes to post a job for this specific, so let's say we have an RN/ER job, which has 100, 100, 150, pretty much across the board. So when they go to post a job and they select RN/ER, it will automatically populate those rates in the fields below at the bottom. However, if they were to go in and say, nope, this isn't right for this specific job, they might say, nope, it's only going to be 100 for that. When they click to save, got to fill in a couple more fields. All the rates are there, so we click on Save. Well, it'll pop up and say, do you want to update the bill rates for this specialty within the Client tab? So if they click Approve, we'll automatically update that specialty tab, so every time they do a job, that rate will appear. Or they could say Decline, nope, it's just specific for this job, and they could decline it. And so that job has been posted. And so when a recruiter goes to open up that job on their deal sheet, they're able to see all those different rates that have been configured. And then they also can see when we selected yes for those additional rates, they're able to see all the additional fields that they can enter in. So we can say that if there's a 200, and you can go through and enter in all the different amounts that you would like to enter. And then they would be able to click Save. In this segment, we are going to talk about timesheet configurations. These configurations have always been there. However, we have enhanced our timesheet and being able to record individual candidate timesheet reports and being able to reproduce more reports out of our system to help with your back office with payroll and billing and things along those lines. So to go to timesheet configurations, you'll go to Admin, and down at the bottom we have Timesheet. You'll click on Timesheet. And you'll see that we list all 4 divisions. We have nursing, allied, executive, and perm placement. On here, you'll double click on the division that you would like to update or edit. And then we have our fields that populate. So we have our nursing division. So timesheet rounding. So if you want to round up minutes when you're entering those timesheets for calculations, we have 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and 15 minutes. So you'll select your choice. We'll say 10 minutes. On the timesheet, if you would like to have a 24-hour clock, you'll click yes, so that way all the times are being entered into the candidate timesheet will run on a 24-hour clock. If you'd like to do our 12A and 12P, you would just select no. Next, we have payment for lunch. So if the candidate gets paid for lunch, you would select yes or no. Then we have payment for breaks, along as a yes and no selection if they would get paid on their breaks. Our next field is mandatory breaks after hours. So you would enter the hour amount of when they would have to take a break. So we could say 6 hours they have to take a break. We have our timesheet due date. So if they have to turn all their timesheets in to your agency, you would select that date. So it'll say that they have to be turned in by Friday. And you can select the time that it has to be turned in by. So you can have 12 p.m., you could have 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. So you can go through and when your agency needs to have those timesheets in from your candidates. If there's a minimum callback hour, so let's say that no matter what, if they work callback, they have to at least get paid for 3 hours. You can enter that in there. And then you can also enter in an email address just for recording purposes of where they can either email the timesheets to and then who you can report out to those timesheets to for your payroll and back office items. So we'll click Save. And that will update all your information right here. So these information that's collected here will help guide and dictate the information that is entered on the timesheet collection. So in our timesheet collection, if you're working on a 24-hour clock, you would enter start and finish times in a 24-hour clock. If you had them getting paid on breaks or paid on lunch, as you enter in those times, it would also calculate how much that their pay would be. So you actually are able to kind of configure the items on this timesheet and have the values as you enter affect what was added. So it helps configure overall timesheet of information. So you would just go through and enter in the information of the timesheet, save and submit, and it would help generate those times and those pay rates that you would need to be exported into a file for the back office payroll. And this concludes our video on all the new admin configurations that will be coming out with our back office release. Thank you again for watching and for your time, and as always, you can contact support@laboredge.com with any questions that you may have. Have a great day.